The promise of dawn. The call came in the deep hush of the night. The clock on the wall above the kitchen sink read 3:08 a.m., a time when nothing good ever happens. My old bones felt a cold dread before the voice on the other end even spoke. They told me there had been an accident. They spoke of a car crash. They mentioned a possibility of death. I did not ask questions. I did not need more details. The sound of their voice alone was enough to tell me everything I needed to know. Moved through the house with a quiet purpose that only a retired man who has seen too much can have. I grabbed my worn leather coat. I found my keys hanging by the door. I took a deep breath and went to her room. My granddaughter was already awake. She was only 6 years old, but her eyes held a wisdom far beyond her years. They were wide and silent and full of an unspoken fear. She did not cry. She did not speak. She simply stood up from her small bed and came to me. She clutched my hand the whole ride to the hospital, a grip that was too tight, too still for a child. The suburban streets of our Massachusetts town were empty and dark, the streetlights a blur of gold and white against the night. The world felt muted and unreal. In the intensive care unit, the feeling only grew stronger. Machines beeped with a slow and steady rhythm. Nurses moved in a hushed dance, murmuring to each other in low tones. The air was thick with that sterile scent of blood and bleach, a smell I had not encountered in years, not since my time on the police force. My daughter Lily lay there beneath a tangle of wires and tubes. Her beautiful face was pale, bruised, and looked so very fragile. She was only 27 years old, too young to be in a place like this. Her body was broken, but still clinging to life. I stood there like a statue, just staring at her face. I felt the slow ache of a new reality sinking into my bones. Then there was a small tug at my sleeve. It was my granddaughter. Her voice was just a whisper. "Grandpa," she said softly. This was not an accident. My heart, a muscle that had been steady through so many years of chaos and crisis, simply stopped. She pointed her small finger toward the bed. "Look at Mom's side," she said. I followed her gaze. My eyes locked on Lily's left arm. A small part of it, visible from beneath the white sheets, scratched into her skin, barely visible beneath. The dried blood were 4 crescent-shaped wounds. They were not deep, but they were clear. I knew what they were immediately. Fingernails, a struggle, a fight. I did not speak. I could not speak. I just stared at those marks. My mind split into 2 halves. One half was still there, in that sterile room, watching the slow beeping of the machines. The other half was somewhere darker, somewhere far away in a memory. Someone else had been in that car with her. Someone It was just 2 nights ago. We were sitting on the porch, drinking sweet tea. She looked at me with an odd seriousness in her eyes. "Dad," she said, "if something happens, promise me you will protect her." I had laughed it off. I thought it was the wine she had been drinking, or maybe the stress from her job, or the slow, difficult end of her marriage. But now her words felt like a prophecy. Her husband Jack was not there when we arrived at the hospital. He did not answer his phone. He did not return any of my messages. His absence was more than just strange. It felt calculated. It felt deliberate. And in that moment, I understood a terrible truth. I had not lost my daughter yet, but someone had tried their best to take her from me, and I was not going to let it happen. Not anymore. I was not done with this. Not yet. I took my granddaughter back home. I tucked her into her bed. She looked at me with those big, silent eyes and asked, "Is Mom going to die, Grandpa?" I lied to her. It was a lie, born of a deep, desperate hope. "No," I said. "She is going to be just fine." Then I sat at the kitchen table. The house was cold and silent. I stared at nothing and everything at the same time. My hands were calm, but my mind was a storm. I opened her laptop. She had given me the password months ago. "For emergencies," she had said. This was an emergency, if ever there was one. I scrolled through messages, emails, and call logs. I started to see a pattern. It formed like cracks in a sheet of glass. Jack's messages were obsessive. They were filled with jealousy and angry accusations of cheating. He was trying to control every part of her life. One message chilled me to the bone. It was from Lily to a close friend. She had written to her, He told me, if he can't have me, no one will. I read that line over and over again. Then I checked the night of the accident. There were 5 missed calls from him, all between 9 o'clock p.m. and 9:30 p.m. She crashed. At 9:45 p.m. the police report said she was alone in the car. I knew that was a lie. I did not believe it for a second. Used an old contact from my days on the police force, a friend who was still on the force and still owed me a favor. I asked him to pull the traffic camera footage from the route she drove. It was midnight when I finally watched it on my laptop. I held my breath. There was her car, and then a second figure. In the passenger seat, their head was turned toward her. It was clear they were arguing. Suddenly, her car swerved hard. It hit the guardrail with a terrible force. The passenger door flew open. A man stepped out. He did not look back. He did not call for help. He did not even hesitate. He just ran into the dark trees. I froze the frame. The face was blurry, but I knew that face. It was Jack. I saved the image. I printed a copy. And then I waited. At dawn, Jack came to the hospital. He had on a suit that looked too clean for the occasion. Fake concern was painted across his face, a mask he wore poorly. I waited for him to see Lily, and then, as he was about to leave, I stopped him. I handed him the photograph of him leaving the scene. I said nothing. I just watched the blood drain from his skin. The color left his face until he was as pale as the hospital walls. "You do not understand," whispered his voice, trembling. "I understood perfectly," I said calmly. I did not raise my voice. I did not make a scene. I just leaned in close. So he was the only one who could hear me. "You tried to kill my daughter." He shook his head, his eyes wide with a panicked denial. "You can't prove that," he stammered. Handed him a USB drive with the video footage. "You walked away," I said. "You left her to die." He reached for my arm. I did not flinch. My eyes locked with his. "You have 2 options," I said, my voice cold and hard as stone. "You can turn yourself in to the police right now, or I will bury you with this evidence. You will not have a life left." He stared at me like he was searching for the man. He thought I was the kind grandfather, the soft, not the man who once pulled dead bodies from wreckage, not the man who had stared into the cold, dead eyes of killers. He looked for that man, but he did not find him. He chose wrong. He chose to run again. I would not. Not this time. Jack's trial for attempted murder starts in 2 months. He cried in the courtroom when they read the charges. I did not cry. My daughter is awake now. She is healing. She is quiet. She knows the truth. She thanked me when she could finally speak. But I saw something in her eyes that made me feel a deep sadness. A part of her, a small part, still trusts him. That part is dead now. It died on that road when he left her, and I have learned a hard lesson. Love does not blind us. We blind ourselves out of hope, out of fear. But in the end, the truth is always there. It waits in the silence. It does not scream or shout. It whispers like a child pulling at your sleeve, saying, "Look." And in that moment, you either see the truth or you never come back. There is no other choice.